As you traverse an eerie, mist-shrouded forest, you stumble upon a chilling sight. A group of diminutive, malevolent creatures. These malicious fae, distinguished by their blood-red caps and vicious grins, skulk amidst the shadows with rusted, blood-stained implements in hand. Their malevolent gazes fixate on the party with a blend of mischief and murderous intent. With twisted glee, the Redcaps danced around a macabre circle adorned with trophies of their victims, emitting eerie cackles that echoed through the desolate woodlands. You sense a palpable danger emanating from these maleficent beings, their malicious aura warning of imminent peril should you dare to tread closer to their cursed domain within the haunted depths of the forest. Yes, with it being the start of the month of December, I feel like it's only fitting to cover monsters I feel that could fit nicely within a Christmas-themed adventure or campaign. Today we are talking about the gnome-looking Redcaps. Hello and welcome to Dungeon Deep Dive, where we talk about all things D&D monsters, from monsters and their lore to their publication history, where they originated, and how you could use them in your D&D games. In today's Monster Monday, we are going over the Fey beings that love nothing more than to spend their Friday nights washing their glorious red hats in a bath of your blood. The Redcaps. Even though these are not the Redcaps that we know and love in 5th edition, they technically made their first appearance in the 2nd edition 1998 adventure Ravenloft: The Shadow Rift. This adventure is obviously set in the Ravenloft campaign setting, where you're set to explore a strange land called the Shadow Rift that was swallowed up by Ravenloft. The Shadow Rift is governed and controlled by two alternating members of the Unseelie Court, Marve and Loth, the Prince of Shadow. So you can kind of tell which court these little monsters hail from. In this adventure, they are described as evil and sinister creatures who delight in violence, murder, and cruel torture. Skillful assassins and masterful spies, they prosper in the Shadow Rift under the rule of Loth, acting as his eyes and ears. They look a little different in the 2nd edition compared to the Redcaps we know now. They are described as a sprite-like race with wiry beards, feral teeth, and snake-like eyes. They have wasp-like wings and wear capes dyed red with the blood of past victims. Most of the Redcaps are seen also wearing a purple or crimson tunic with sashes, not as a style choice, but to be used to strangle or garrote their enemies. They are given the ability to change their form into that of a red wasp, hornets, or other smaller flying creatures. While in this form, they can spend up to 3 hours a day in this form and change back and forth at will. One trait that did follow them all the way through to 5th edition is their ill temper and their insultive and offensive vocabulary. If you or someone are rude or offensive, then some would say that you have the voice of a Redcap. These creatures thrive on violence and chaos and choose to use their sharp pinpointed teeth and keenly sharp daggers for weapons. Their teeth are nothing to scoff at too. If you manage to get bitten by one of these creatures, you would need to make a saving throw or become poisoned or blind. They even have the ability to let out a high-pitched shriek to anyone within 30 feet, and they must make a saving throw or become deaf. Imagine being blinded and deafened by these little guys. That wouldn't be fun. If they really want to give you a real scare, then they will smile menacingly and horrifically, showing off their sharp needle-like teeth, and this menacing grin will make anyone within 30 feet of the creature to make a saving throw or become feared. So if you get bitten, you become blind. If you get hit by the shriek, you become deaf. And if you fail to save on the grin, you also become feared. So blind, deafened, and scared. If you get all 3 fails, oh boy! These things were actually pretty scary in 2nd edition because only a +3 platinum weapon could harm the Redcaps, and they are immune to any other damage from steel weapons, which is most weapons in the game. If the Redcap, however, is caught out in direct sunlight, they are extremely sensitive to it, and they will actually take damage the more they sit in it. The Redcaps in 2nd edition are said to live in small paper houses that resemble large wasp nests, and to enter the nest they actually have to transform into their insect forms. And inside the nest is just a smorgasbord with trinkets and trophies from their previous victims. And on rare occasions, if a Redcap encounters a particularly evil rogue or merchant, for example, the Redcap will take them back to the Shadow Rift and transform them into a changeling. Now moving on to 3rd edition, the Redcap rears its evil little head again in the 2004 Monster Manual, more specifically the Elder and Younger Redcap. The description in the book really does set the tone for these ratchety old fey creatures. It states that Redcaps are the most evil fae you're ever likely to meet. They are mass murdering psychotic killers, who live on other creatures' pain. So as you can see, straight to the point with these guys. They stand at around 3 to 4 feet tall and wield a scythe that looks a little too large for them. They are no longer fairy looking creatures, but look more like a tough old man with leathery skin and protruding razor sharp teeth. Obviously they have the same traits of the previous, which they always wear the red hats and keep the red looking fresh by dripping it in the blood of anything it kills. And they have some solid little iron booties on their feet as well to go with it. Their habitat has changed from 2nd edition also. Instead of them living in the paper-like wasp nest, they instead prefer to call home in old buildings and towers abandoned for a long time, and especially if the abode was left vacant by some horrific tragedy. The book says that the elder redcaps live for a very long time by draining some of the essence of the creatures they kill, in which it gives them incredible strength and near invulnerability. In 3rd edition, redcaps prefer the art of ambushing their victims when they're getting ready to set up camp, for example, for a night, and launch an attack on them without any mercy. In the society of a redcap in 3rd edition, the chaos and bloodshed does not quieten down there. They assemble in small camps and tend to argue and fight with each other quite often, and will end up getting into fights to the death with other redcaps. Although one thing to point out is they will not dip their hats in the blood of a redcap that they've killed, because they believe a curse will be put upon them if they do so. The redcap elders are usually in control of the camps to try and keep some semblance of order by bullying the younger redcaps into submission. We also find out that the redcaps are asexual creatures and reproduce by a process called budding. It states that they bud once or twice in their 150-year lifespan, and they carry the buds on their back like a hump for around 6 months before they just fall right off. When a bud falls, it sprouts a head and limbs and becomes a newborn redcap. The newborn must then fend for itself immediately and quickly develops its foul attitude that all redcaps have. They grow to full size pretty quick too, with them getting fully grown within about a year of being born. Now moving on to 4th edition, these guys get a whole new name change and look again. In this edition, they are now called Spriggans and do still have the red caps, but now have greenish skin and kind of resemble goblins more than gnomes. There are 4 variants of Spriggans in 4th edition and are described as gnomes altered by Fomorian magic, and now wander the lands of the material plane, pillaging villages for treasures and the delight of slaying anyone they see. The first variant we get is the Spriggan Giant Soul. This one builds up evil that they inherit from Fomorian domination, giving them the ability to stretch their arms to a giant's reach. They have an ability called Redcap's Zeal, where if they reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, they regain 1d10 plus 3 temporary hit points. That's a pretty decent amount. Next on the list, we have the Spriggan Powery. These guys wield 2 sickles and iron-studded boots that make them quick and noble skirmishers. The Spriggan Thorn is a soldier variant of the Redcap and wields a sword capable of casting Mark of Thorns that stops an enemy from making opportunity attacks until the end of the fight, and also deals a little damage on the side. And finally, we have the Spriggan Witherer. These guys are the more magic proficient of the group to control weather and soak the earth with the blood of their enemies. Unlike before, they like to stay in abandoned buildings and towers. The 4e version says that they like to spend their time in dark burrows and rugged terrain. The book says that Spriggans are actually gnomes that were slaves to the Fomorians, and Spriggans are what happens when gnomes unfortunately are unable to escape their captors. Sadly, there's not really a lot of information in 4e about the Redcaps, or Spriggans as they're called. But what we do learn is they are still extremely violent and bloodthirsty. And finally, we have the little red boys we know and love, the 5e Redcaps. In 5e, they go back to their description of horrific looking older men with leathery skin, but still have their insatiable thirst for blood and their incredible strength. We actually get some pretty cool lore behind the Redcaps in 5th edition. It says that if a sentient creature acts on an intense desire for bloodshed, one or more redcaps may appear where the bloodstain of a person soaks the ground. At first, new redcaps look like tiny bloodstained mushrooms just pushing their caps out of the soil. When moonlight shines on one of these caps, a creature that looks like a wizened and undersized gnome with a hunchback and a sinewy frame springs from the earth. It says from the moment that the redcap comes into existence, they have a desire for murder and carnage, and its only goal is to satiate that hunger. We also get some cool info about why the redcaps feel the need to soak their hats in blood. It says that when they are born, their hats are soaked in the blood of the victim they came from, and if they do not replenish this blood every 3 days, they will simply vanish and disappear from existence. It also gives us info that they are sometimes hired by hags and and dark mages that magically call redcaps from the Fey and bind them into servitude. They can also sense the presence of the person who committed the act of murder that gave them life. You would think that this would give them some kind of kingship to that individual, but no! This actually pushes them to find their person and make them their first victim. Now, in the 5th edition adventure Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, there is a night hag called Maggie that made a deal with an Eladrian supplier to have constantly 60 redcaps and 30 madcaps at her home. Madcaps are redcaps, but dialed up to 11. Madcaps are made whenever a redcap decides it is a good idea to dip its hat in the blood ichor of a demon. Doing this makes the hat fuse to the head of the creature and makes them look even more menacing than before. Even if they do not gain any additional stat changes, they still look horrifying. Okay, we've gone over everything we can with the redcaps. Now let's go over their stats. These little chaos gremlins have an AC of 13 and 45 hit points, so not the most hearty of creatures. They only have the speed of 25 feet due to their small stature, and have a challenge rating of 3, the same CR of like a displacer beast or a bugbear. They have an ability called Iron Boots, where while moving, the redcaps has disadvantage on dexterity stealth checks, similar to a player character wearing like plate armor or chainmail. They have another ability called Outsized Strength, where while grappling, the redcap is considered to be a medium creature. Also, wielding a heavy weapon doesn't impose disadvantage on its attacks due to their 18 strength. For their actions, they get a multi-attack where they get to make 3 attacks with their wicked ass sickle. The sickle in question has a +6 to hit and a reach of 5 feet and deals 2d4 slashing damage. As well as the sickle, they also get a Ironbound Pursuit action, where the redcap moves up to its speed to a creature it can see and kicks it with its iron boots. The target must succeed on a DC 14 dex save or take 3d10 plus 4 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone. If you're ever knocked prone in front of multiple redcaps, be ready for a bloodbath. These guys are pure chaos and bloodlust, and I love that about them and feel they are always a great addition to any campaign. You and your party could be on the hunt for a hag that's been causing chaos in the world, and you find her lair only for it to be filled to the brim with an army of redcaps that are brought under her servitude to defend her. Or you could be venturing through a beautiful forest at night, the full moonlight shining through the trees, when suddenly you encounter an open area absolutely covered in pools of blood. Getting closer, you start to see little mushrooms sprouting out of the blood. Before you know it, redcaps are sprouting out of the blood pools all around you and launching a full frontal assault on anything they can see. But that is all I have for you guys today on the redcaps. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all found this video helpful, and if there's anything that I've missed, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. What monster should I cover next? Let me know in the comments below, and I will add your comment at the end of that video. You can find links to all my socials below to keep up to date on the video schedule. Thank you all for watching again, and I'll see you all in the next video.